Neil deGrasse Tyson, your host of Nova Science Now, where this season we're asking 6 big questions. On this episode, how smart are animals?
Apresento-vos a Chaser. Tem um vocabulário longo.
She knows the name of every single one of these?
E não é só ela. Os cães estão a passar testes que os nossos parentes mais chegados não conseguem.
Look at that intensity.
E os investigadores estão finalmente a reparar.
A dog is like a soldier of science.
Find crawdad.
If we can figure out how they think, then we'll understand ourselves.
Excellent, excellent, good job.
E uma viagem ao paraíso, onde algumas das criaturas mais espertas até conseguem ler símbolos e são também os mais conversadores.
These are his clicks.
Mas o que é que estão a dizer?
Is a whistle a word? Is it a sentence?
Yes, he's very vocal.
Podemos decifrar o código do golfinho? Comunicar com animais é muito mais fácil se eles falarem.
Right. He was at the level of about a 5 or 6-year-old child.
Esta investigadora passou a sua carreira com uma ave notável.
How many?
Alex.
Good parent. For 30 years, Alex was the center of my life.
What do you want? You want a nut? You can have a nice big nut.
This is a parrot. How amazing is that?
We were communicating with another species. Can you tell me what's different? Color.
Serão só truques?
Find Darwin.
Ou estes animais são mesmo inteligentes?
Chaser hasn't even ever heard the name Darwin. All that and more on this episode of Nova Science Now. It's part of our pop culture to give animals human personalities and talents. Good boy, good boy. Movies and cartoons are filled with talking creatures who basically act like people, but they've got feathers or fur, from Donald Duck to Alvin and the Chipmunks. And when it comes to our own pets, it's awfully tempting to imagine that they have human thoughts and feelings. But researchers have always been skeptical about animal intelligence. After all, we humans speak and write and build spaceships and solve puzzles. Yet animals, well, they're just not that accomplished. Yet recently, as we test more animals and try to reveal the way they think, we've come up with some surprising results. And these days, one of our star pupils is the one animal who may know us the best.
She's a wonderful little dog. She is something special. She's really smart, and we have this connection.
She is extremely intelligent.
I think that she is very much like a person.
Jump. Oh. I think Tucker understands me more than anyone else.
Muitos donos de cães sempre disseram que os seus cães eram espertos, mas os investigadores estão apenas a começar a perceber.
1, 2, 3.
Descobertas recentes mostram que o nosso melhor amigo é mais esperto do que algum dia se pensou.
Good job.
E por trás daqueles olhos grandes e castanhos, há um cérebro parecido com o nosso de forma nunca imaginada. John Peely, um bem disposto de 82 anos, começou a trabalhar com cães como professor de psicologia. Agora tem um dos animais mais espertos. Viemos ver o que a cadela consegue fazer.
Good girl.
Chaser, com 6 anos, é uma cadela Border Collie, uma raça famosa de cães pastores.
She was born to live in the Scottish mountains.
Chase, tunnel.
And herd sheep.
Go, there.
Be a shepherd.
John ensinou Chaser a tomar conta de um rebanho enorme, mas não é de verdadeiras ovelhas. O rebanho de Chaser é feito de brinquedos. Cerca de 1000.
And she knows the name of every single one of these?
I hope.
Sailor.
John deu um nome a cada um deles.
Never forget. Oh, 'cause it's
E ensinou os nomes a Chaser.
It's an elephant.
Yeah.
Okay.
She has about 12 elephants.
Aparentemente, John às vezes ficava sem animais de peluche.
Uh-oh, these are a pair of my shorts.
Oh my God.
No, that's one of her toys.
John pergunta a Chaser se lembra do nome de cada objeto neste monte. Parece difícil acreditar nisso. Para testar a memória de Chaser em 1000 nomes, vamos testá-la numa amostra ao acaso. John e Chaser vão para casa para não verem.
So I'm going to get a handful of toys out of this pile and see if Chaser can identify them indoors. Right here.
Com John e Chaser fora do quarto, pomos alguns brinquedos atrás do sofá.
Inky. There's Lover.
Agora está na hora de ver se Chaser se lembra destes nomes.
All ready for Chaser. Come on, Chaser. Come to Neil. Okay, come on down. Quick. Chaser, find Inky.
Acertou num.
Find Seal. Whoa!
Nesta também.
Okay, ready, Chaser?
O que se passa atrás do sofá? Será que o John lhe está a entregar os brinquedos?
Find Crawdad.
Vamos verificar com a nossa câmara escondida.
Find Sugar.
Pedimos à Chaser para identificar 9 brinquedos e ela acertou em todos. E lembrem-se que pegamos nos brinquedos ao acaso. Nem o John nem a Chaser viram os bonecos em que pegamos. Em várias tentativas com John e outros, Chaser passa sempre no teste.
There's 1,000 toys here. That doesn't, like, spook you?
It makes me happy. These dogs have super memories. On your mark, get set, go! Over!
Chaser e outros cães desta raça mostraram que se recordam de centenas de palavras e o que elas representam.
Table. Reverse. In, out, in, out.
E o melhor é que aprendem as palavras novas muito depressa.
Over. Table, Chase, table. Table, table. Good girl, good girl.
Como é que esta habilidade se compara com outras espécies? Além de nós, os bonobos e os chimpanzés são os maiores linguistas do reino animal, capazes de aprender linguagem gestual, mas lentamente. E estes são testes em que os cães têm muito melhor desempenho do que os grandes símios. Vejamos uma tarefa simples. Entre os 12 e os 18 meses, um bebê humano sabe ir para onde um adulto aponta.
What do you think?
This is something that little children do right when they start to acquire language.
Brian Eyre é um investigador de primatas que tentou esta experiência com os nossos parentes mais chegados, os chimpanzés comuns e os chimpanzés pigmeus, com resultados surpreendentemente maus.
Primates really struggle. If you try to help them and you try to cooperatively communicate to them about the location of food, they're completely flummoxed. They don't understand.
Ambas as espécies de chimpanzés conseguem resolver problemas sofisticados, mas nem sempre prestam atenção aos seres humanos. Brian suspeitava que este era um teste em que os cães conseguiam fazer melhor do que os chimpanzés. E claro, quando os cães chegaram ao laboratório, perceberam.
So dogs, on the other hand, they're really good at this. If you say, hey, the treat's over there, the dogs, they're really good, and they go find the thing. And relative to primates, it ends up dogs have a very special ability.
Para Brian, a experiência realça uma diferença entre a maneira como os cães e os chimpanzés veem as pessoas.
Come here. When I see my dog wants me to be around. He wants me to be his social partner. He actually needs me. Whereas a bonobo and chimpanzee, they don't need me. They're basically like, hey, you got any food? Can I get any food off of you? Is there something I can do to trick you, to teach? No? Okay, well, I'm going to go stay with my fellow bonobos and chimpanzees. They're not interested in making me happy.
Em comparação com os primatas, os cães são sujeitos de análise ideais porque colaboram com os humanos.
Good girl.
A dog is like a soldier. They're like a soldier of science. They show up and they're like, yes, sir, I'm here to play. Let's do this game. Let's find out how my mind works. You know, is that a biscuit? Okay, I'm whatever you need.
Portanto, apesar dos primatas como os chimpanzés terem cérebros maiores do que os cães e estarem geneticamente muito mais próximos de nós, Brian suspeita que a inteligência social dos cães possa ser mais como a nossa.
Yes, you're a good boy.
É por isso que ele e mais uns investigadores de primatas instalaram laboratórios de cognição com cães.
Jazzy!
If we can figure out how they think and why they were shaped the way that they were, then we'll understand ourselves.
Look at that intensity. Look at that focus.
They're truly amazing.
Então, como é que foram moldadas as mentes dos cães?
Good girl.
Os cães evoluíram dos lobos. Brian pensa que algo de crucial aconteceu ao cérebro dos cães durante essa evolução de animal selvagem para animal doméstico, que lhes permitiu prestarem atenção a outra espécie, a humana.
It's an exciting idea that somehow dogs, during domestication, are shaped during tens of thousands of years to be able to read our social cues in a way that allows them to survive with us.
Fomos até ao Parque de Lobos, em Indiana, onde visitamos um psicólogo de animais, Clive Wynne.
Hey, we're coming to see you now.
Estes são os lobos mais mansos do mundo, criados por pessoas quase desde o dia em que nasceram. Mas somos avisados para termos muito cuidado à volta deles e não fazermos movimentos bruscos.
Wolves still can have very violent fights with people they are friends with, and that's why it's not wise to try and make pets of wolves.
But I also get the sense that they know, in their head, you can see them thinking it. Say, I could rip your throat out if I wanted, but I just choose not to at this moment.
They still have a more violent kind of social life, and they have very powerful jaws, and they can really do you some serious harm if they decide that you and they are now in some dispute about something. Dinner, for example.
Wolves, relative to dogs, are much more emotionally reactive around humans, so there really seems to have been evolution. There's been selection, actually, for dogs to be really interested and tolerant towards people.
Os cães são muito menos voláteis do que os lobos. Brian acha que a sua tolerância emocional é o que lhes permite prestar atenção aos seres humanos e, como resultado, torna os alunos mais flexíveis.
Chaser, fine meal. Fine meal.
Vejam a Chaser, a cadela esperta de John Peely. Vejamos o que ela faz quando a desafiamos com um brinquedo novo que ela nunca viu nem nunca ouviu falar.
I smuggled this into your house.
É um boneco de Charles Darwin.
Okay, so I put 7 toys behind the couch, plus Darwin. Chaser's never seen Darwin, hasn't even ever heard the name Darwin. So we're going to see if she picks out Darwin by inference. That's what we're going to check. I'm going to call her down now. Chaser, come on back. Let's have some more fun.
Primeiro pedimos que descubram os bonecos que ela já conhece.
Find Sugar.
Excellent, Chaser. Chaser, good.
Okay, put in a bin. Find Quadad.
Excellent, excellent, good job.
Okay, put in the tub. Put in the
E
tub.
aqui vai. Um nome que ela nunca ouviu.
Find Darwin.
Portanto, enquanto procurava os outros bonecos, Chaser sabia exatamente qual devia ir buscar. Agora parece que tem que pensar qual é o Darwin.
It's taking her longer.
Está a demorar muito. Vamos chamá-la.
Chaser? Find Darwin. Find Darwin.
Finalmente, ela escolhe.
Darwin, it got Darwin.
Inacreditável. Ela nunca viu aquele brinquedo antes.
Darwin. That's Darwin. You're a good girl.
Seja como for, ela fez a ligação de que o nome que nunca tinha ouvido pertencia ao brinquedo que ela não reconhecia.
It's a good girl.
Chaser não é a única a fazer isso.
That's Darwin.
Ainda por cima, cães como Chaser mostraram que se lembram da ligação que fizeram entre um novo nome e um novo brinquedo. Esta é outra forma de aprendizagem.
What's interesting about seeing how dogs are learning these new words is that people thought this was really unique to humans, that this was something that was only humans do this. But it seems that no, that's not the case, that dogs can make these inferences about what novel utterances mean, and they can remember them for quite a long period. Now, this looks just like what little children are doing. And so it's remarkable because the flexibility we see in dogs seems to be very similar to what you see in young children at a very important age in their development.
A investigação com cães está apenas a começar. Mas as esperanças são elevadas de que este animal, durante tanto tempo esquecido pela ciência, nos possa dar informações sobre a forma como a aprendizagem funciona e oferecem uma janela única sobre a evolução da mente.
When we see animals doing remarkable things, how do we know if we're simply seeing tricks or signs of real intelligence? Are talented animals just obeying commands, or do they have some kind of a deeper understanding? One of the biggest challenges for animal researchers is to come up with tests that can distinguish between the two. Correspondent Doug Hamilton traveled to a Caribbean cove to find out if some of our favorite performers are merely good at taking direction, or if they're smart enough to put on a show all their own.
Esta não é uma cena típica de laboratório científico. É uma estação de mergulho chamada Anthony's Key. Viemos aqui para conhecer os 24 golfinhos roazes que vivem por cá. Pensem neste lugar como uma escola mesmo bonita para golfinhos. Terry Bolton é a treinadora e mostra-nos como fazer as coisas.
Finger up first. Finger up first.
E a porta para o coração do golfinho.
You reach into the bucket and very gently drop it into his mouth. Down the hatch.
They got a lot of teeth in there.
They do.
Terry treinou os golfinhos para fazerem coisas muito interessantes e eles gostam de mostrar os truques.
Are you ready? Yeah, we're ready. You sure? They are amazing animals. They're very curious. They're very bright. So what we try to do as trainers is teach them the love of learning. Turn and go. We start every training session off on a high, and we want to leave it on a high. We're all about positive reinforcement. They love to be correct. Doesn't everyone? I just...
You cheer them on like you're playing with a dog. Is that what you're doing? Is that you're just encouraging that behavior?
Hey, that was better. I think we cheer them on like they're our kids. And you can see how they respond to that. You can see the brightness in their eyes. You can hear it in their vocalizations. They respond to that joy.
Terry diz que uma das melhores maneiras de viver o mundo do golfinho é mergulhar nas profundezas do seu mundo.
Dolphins are so well adapted to life in the sea. Their brains have evolved to a higher level where they can play and create and problem solve.
Um grande desafio para perceber quão inteligentes são os golfinhos é o facto do mundo deles ser tão diferente do nosso. O cérebro do golfinho tem poderes que o nosso não tem. Para o provar, Terry pediu-me que escondesse um aro debaixo de água, fora do parque dos golfinhos. Sem poder ver o aro, Terry ou qualquer outro ser humano teria dificuldade em encontrá-lo.
Mission accomplished. They'll never find it.
Por isso manda Paia, o golfinho macho mais velho. Dá-lhe ordens para encontrar o aro. O sistema áudio debaixo de água detecta que Paia está a fazer um som aos estalidos.
He's really searching hard for it.
Mas isto é mais do que um ruído. Os golfinhos conseguem detectar o refluxo do seu som, o que lhes dá uma ideia do que os rodeia. Paia utiliza a ecolocalização como um sonar para encontrar o aro.
He outsmarted me.
O cérebro do golfinho é grande. Na verdade, em relação às dimensões do corpo, é o segundo, logo a seguir aos seres humanos, o que é indicador da força potencial do seu cérebro. Terry testa estes cérebros com uma atividade que nós, humanos, associamos claramente com a inteligência, a leitura. Será que os golfinhos conseguem entender comandos lendo um símbolo? Parece que sim. Ao ver estes golfinhos, parece muito claro que são mesmo espertos. Mas o que pensam os cientistas?
Are dolphins really intelligent? Yes, I definitely believe that that's the case. But in fact, I think we've just scratched the surface about what dolphins are really capable of.
Stan Kuchai dirige o Laboratório de Comportamento e Cognição de Mamíferos Marinhos na Universidade do Sul do Mississippi e está a estudar o grau de inteligência dos golfinhos.
Put your finger back up.
Finger up.
Sway.
We've been watching these animals do amazing things. But how do you know if they're doing something that's really just a rote, learned behavior versus doing something that actually shows how smart they are?
That's a really good question. Dolphins learn to do a flip on command, and they learn to associate a trainer's signal with that behavior.
Yay! Good job!
But a more flexible problem solving is when they can actually be a little bit more creative. That shows intelligence much more so than the rote learning does.
Para ver se os golfinhos conseguem fazer muito mais do que memorizar, Kuchai inventou uma experiência há uns anos para testar a capacidade, não só para seguir instruções, mas para pensar e planear com antecedência.
Planning is a real hallmark of intelligence.
Os golfinhos foram treinados para pegarem num peso e colocá-lo numa caixa. Aprenderam que se pusessem pesos suficientes, poderia sair um peixe do fundo da caixa. Os golfinhos perceberam rapidamente que podiam ter o peixe mais depressa e com menos trabalho, juntando vários pesos em cada viagem.
If you can plan, you can decide what course of action to take without actually having to try it first. That enables you to avoid a lot of risky situations and to be much more adaptable.
Os golfinhos são animais sociais, viajam em grupos. Será que planeiam em conjunto?
I've seen dolphins in the wild, and all of a sudden, all the dolphins get together and do a deep dive together. Obviously, somebody's coordinated that behavior.
Como é que fazem? Estão mesmo a comunicar? Era bom se lhes pudéssemos perguntar.
What are you saying?
Now, they make different sounds.
Yeah, French is yes, he's very vocal.
Show me the difference between a click and a whistle.
Here's his whistle. And these are his clicks.
Os cientistas acham que estes cliques e estes assobios podem ser os elementos de construção de uma linguagem, mas ainda ninguém conseguiu traduzir.
Yeah, you have a lot to talk about, don't you, mister?
Stan e Terry inventaram uma experiência espantosa de 2 passos. Foi concebida para testar se os golfinhos são artistas treinados ou se conseguem planear e inventar truques por eles próprios.
Ronnie and Bill forward, Richie and Paia from shallow to way back.
Primeiro é pedido aos golfinhos que aprendam um conceito, que criem um truque sozinhos, não apenas um comportamento memorizado. Agora, Stan e Terry sobem a fasquia. Querem perceber se as 2 estrelas, Ronnie e Bill, conseguem criar qualquer coisa em conjunto. Isto quer dizer que os golfinhos vão ter que pensar, planear e comunicar.
So you're building them up now to the big moment.
Okay, we're gonna do create this time. Ready? Fingers up.
Debaixo de água, Stan consegue ter a visão que os golfinhos têm. E a câmara registra também os sons que os golfinhos fazem. E claro que houve o assobio que os caracteriza.
Go, go, go! Did you see that? They went on their backs and they lifted their tails.
That's really cool.
That's monumental. They've never done that before.
Parece que estes golfinhos conseguem fazer muito mais do que aprender repetições.
It's really impressive because the animals have to understand the concept of do something different, and they have to be able to keep track of what they've done.
Do we know of other species of animals that can do this?
As far as I know, other than humans, dolphins are the only ones that can do this.
A grande questão é saber se esta experiência permite descodificar o golfinho.
We know they produce lots of sounds. What is a whistle? A word? Is it a sentence? Is it a paragraph? Does it express an emotion?
You're looking, in a sense, for the Rosetta Stone of dolphin communication.
Yes. It would be really nice to find that. So if you're diving and you find that, please bring it up.
In the animal kingdom, one of the keys to survival is to outwit your enemies. And when you're surrounded by carnivores, one of the best strategies is to fade into the background and disappear. Correspondent Jake Ward met some animals whose mastery of disguise is so sophisticated it could be a sign of a surprisingly complex brain.
When it comes to animals, we humans tend to think we know which ones are the most intelligent. Our own pets.
Give me 5. Good target. Oh, good target. Good boy.
And most of these smart pets have one thing in common. They're all mammals, just like ourselves. But invertebrates, they don't get much respect. Take mollusks, for example. It's hard to imagine a whole lot of mental activity in a clam.
Mas preparem-se para conhecer o Einstein dos moluscos com o seu cérebro incrível. Os cefalópodes, chocos, lulas e o espantoso polvo.
It's this wily creature with 8 arms, 200 suckers per arm. Every sucker is highly malleable. They have enormous brains, and there's a lot of complexity there, including intelligence, cognition, and it's the big brain that imparts that.
Aqui no Biomas, um aquário centro de ciência na Ilha Rhodes, o educador Mark Hall tem estudado uma das suas maiores atrações, o polvo Ruby. E já agora Ruby é um rapaz.
Octopuses are absolutely smart. They exhibit intelligence. I see them problem solve, which is the most impressive part. They teach themselves how to fix problems. There's a lot of signs of intelligence there, without doubt.
Um problema que Ruby aprendeu a resolver é abrir um frasco que contém camarão bem saboroso.
Here's a jar. He knows it has food in it, but there's a cover on it. I don't teach him how to take the cover off. I give it to him and say, go ahead, see what you can do. And at the beginning, he would twist it the wrong way and tighten it. And he used to do that about half the time, which makes sense, right?
Right.
And as time went on, he did it less and less often until now, he never twisted.
Now he's like, lefty loosey, I got this.
It's learning from its successes and its failures, and that's definitely problem solving. Want to try it?
Yeah, I do. Can I try that? All right.
All right, so you're going to just put it in the tank.
Right. Oh,
there you go.
Oh, there it goes. Whoa. Holy cow.
All right, now he's reaching in.
Whoa.
Placed it right into his
never
mouth.
had a chance.
Do you notice he's holding the cap?
Right.
And see the arm, making sure there's nothing in the jar.
He's double checking. He just hangs onto the cap like a guy who twiddles his fork for a while after he's finished eating. Wow.
Mas uma coisa é resolver o problema de comer o almoço. Outra coisa é evitar tornar-se o almoço de alguém. Estes cefalópodes evoluíram de forma a evitar serem atacados. Usam o poder da mente para criar a camuflagem. Vejam isto. Um predador vasculha o recife. Aos seus olhos nada escapa. Tem os dentes aguçados e está com fome. Um polvo gordinho e suculento dar-lhe-ia proteína suficiente para vários dias, mas não há nada à vista. Ou haverá? Isto não são efeitos especiais de Hollywood. É um exemplo do incrível cérebro do cefalópode a trabalhar, tal como foi captado em vídeo pelo biólogo marinho de Woods Hole, Roger Hanlon.
The visual deception was really, I think, pretty good.
Yeah, it's incredible. How did you know it was there?
I'd been following this animal for almost 45 minutes.
It's just skipping from good spot to good spot for camouflaging itself against the background.
Oh, no. Actually, it's going good spot to find food, but it can camouflage anywhere on any background. But it all happens in about 7/10 of a second.
O vídeo permite a Roger analisar esta transformação espantosa de 7/10 de segundo.
So let's do this slow motion reverse and try and break it down to understand what's happening. So here you see the animal sort of all white and smooth. Now watch the ring develop around the eye. There it is right there.
O animal usa o cérebro entre os olhos para transformar a sua forma tridimensional, a sua cor, textura e padrão. Há neurónios individuais no cérebro que viajam diretamente para a pele, por vezes distâncias de 1 metro, sem terem que saltar os intervalos chamados sinapses.
So it's doing all of these things, pattern, color, brightness. It's dealing with all of that with that brain in 7/10 of a second.
Right, and this is the puzzling part of that. How does this brain, which is large but not a brain the size of this room, accomplish all of this? That's really the mystery.
É mesmo um mistério, porque precisavam de um cérebro do tamanho de um supercomputador para processarem essa informação visual e para imitarem tão rapidamente. Então, como é que conseguem? Roger seguiu uma pista baseada num princípio biológico chamado parcimónia, a ideia de que a natureza encontra formas simples e eficientes para fazer tarefas complexas. Guiado por este princípio da parcimónia, Roger escolheu estudar um cefalópode chamado choco. Escolher apenas uma componente da sua camuflagem, o padrão. Agora Roger acha que descobriu o segredo. Eles simplificam as suas escolhas usando apenas 3 tipos de padrões. O uniforme, que tem muito pouco contraste. O malhado, que tem marcas claras e escuras. E aquele com maior contraste, o radical. Para controlarem a área e o contraste, os animais são expostos a fundos que nunca encontrariam na natureza.
Hello, buddy.
Em cada exemplo, o animal muda o padrão, normalmente em apenas alguns segundos. Uniforme, malhado, contrastado.
Look at that, and there.
Oh, the animal changed magnificently.
Immediately.
Wow. So it's created a mosaic out of itself.
I noticed that the white square on its back is roughly the same size as the checkerboard pattern.
Yes.
So if this were a bigger cuttlefish, you'd need a bigger checkerboard pattern to set this off.
Yes.
O cérebro do animal mede a quantidade de contraste na envolvente e depois altera a sua pele para exibir uma quantidade igual de claro e escuro.
We say this is a window into the brain because the skin is a representation of the neural activity. This takes a lot of neural processing, takes a lot of decision making, and this is what we call cognition and thinking, and it all translates into some form of intelligence.
Inteligência. Um dia teremos um melhor entendimento da forma como os cefalópodes mudam a sua aparência de forma tão radical e como usam o cérebro para outras tarefas que estamos apenas a começar a identificar. Recentemente, investigadores australianos documentaram o que parece ser a prova da sua capacidade de planear. Um polvo no estado selvagem a fazer uma ferramenta a partir de uma casca de coco e a planear como a usar para abrigo e como disfarce. Talvez, mas apenas talvez, os cefalópodes sejam mais inteligentes do que pensamos.
There aren't many science celebrities, but sometimes somebody working in science has so much personality and charisma and makes such an impact that when they pass away, people are left distraught. In this episode's profile, we meet someone who's made major contributions to our effort to understand the animal mind and whose unexpected passing has left a hole in the field of animal studies.
A 6 de setembro de 2007, Alex faleceu.
I don't know if it's a good analogy, but when Michael Jackson died, many people felt a deep loss. It was the same when Alex died. For me, it was actually worse.
I guess I could compare Alex to Albert Einstein.
I read about Alex's passing in The Economist. There's a page at the end, one obituary, and it's only when somebody like really big dies, like somebody who changed the world in some way. And it was Alex the week that he died.
The outpouring, boxes and boxes and boxes of letters, thousands of emails.
Alex era papagaio.
Alex, what toy? Nail. Nail, that's right, you're a good birdie. How many?
E de certo a ave mais famosa do mundo.
Good parent. Good boy. 1, 2.
Esta é a história da sua dona, a doutora Irene Pepperberg.
You be good. You be good.
Uma cientista rebelde cuja relação espantosa com Alex demonstrou que os papagaios não só eram espertos, mas que as suas capacidades mentais podiam rivalizar com as de crianças pequenas.
When people were saying, no, birds can't do this, and I went, but birds can talk. I know they can talk, and they're smart.
Good boy. What shape? 4-corner. Good boy.
So when I said, oh, a parrot's going to do this with a brain the size of a shelled walnut, the first grant proposal came back asking me what I was smoking.
Criada em Brooklyn nos anos 50, era suposto a Irene estudar química, primeiro no IMT e depois ir para estudos graduados em Harvard. Mas em 1974, a meio do seu doutoramento, houve uma série de televisão que mudou tudo.
Nova. Each week, a science adventure.
Say rock. Rock. Say rock. Good boy.
And so there was this ape using sign language, clearly not at the same level as an adult human, but we were communicating with another species. It was the Dr. Dolittle moment.
Com o seu doutoramento a meio, Irene virou costas à química e lançou-se numa nova carreira em biologia na Universidade Purdue. A primeira paragem foi numa loja de animais.
The fellow working with the birds choose one. That way nobody could argue that there was anything special about the bird that I chose. He was just one bird in a cage. That was my first introduction to Alex.
Irene ensinou o nome de vários objetos ao Alex.
What is it? What's here?
Mas nem sempre correu bem.
Unfortunately, the thing that he liked the best was paper. And without lips is really tough.
What is it?
So for a very long time, we had
And some mornings, he'd work really well. Some days, he was in a bad mood. And me and Dr. Pepperberg could tell because he would give you the look. That's what we called it, the look. He would like turn his head and stare at you and look at you. And it's like, oh no, he's not gonna work today.
If you asked for a banana and you gave him a grape, he'd just toss it at you and go, want banana? As though, how could you not understand him? Want to try again? Nice and clear?
Treinar o Alex não saiu barato.
How many?
E o tempo de Irene era passado a escrever pedidos de financiamento uns atrás dos outros.
Grant writing is an art. And you learn that art by getting a lot of grants rejected.
You propose something that's sort of unusual. There's a lot of skepticism out there because people don't know if you're brilliant or if you're crazy.
In September 79, the first grant came through.
Irene teve que desenhar um estudo que pudesse provar que Alex estava, no mínimo, a pensar.
How many quarters?
Desenvolveu um método de treino para o Alex que chamou técnica do modelo rival.
So we had the object the bird wanted. I showed it to the student who was the model for the bird's behavior. Its rival for my attention. I'd say, what's this?
Three. Good, you're right.
And she'd scratch herself the way the bird would. And the bird, of course, would be really interested. And we'd play that same game back and forth. And then we'd show it to the bird. What shape? What shape?
Where?
Good birdie. How many? Good boy. Good parrot.
Irene e Alex trabalharam muito, de 8 a 12 horas por dia.
Banana. Right, good boy.
Mas ele tinha uma equipa de apoio e muita fruta e legumes frescos. Todos biológicos, claro.
What made him special was those first 15 years or so of being an only bird and being the center of everyone's attention and being treated like a toddler. What do you want? You want a nut? You can have a nice big nut. He was very inquisitive in that he, if something came into the lab, he'd ask you, what color?
What color?
What shape? What's that?
Orange.
Orange, good birdie.
Agora que conseguia comunicar com Alex, fez inúmeros testes para avaliar a sua inteligência.
The next breakthrough was on concepts of same and different. And this was something that really people thought that only children and that maybe apes could do. I could show him a number of different objects and ask lots of questions about them. Can you tell me what's different?
Color.
All right. Can you tell me what's same?
Shape.
Good boy. What color bigger? What color bigger?
Yellow.
Good boy. Good birdie. When you think about some of the tasks that Alex did, they were all built on something an animal had to have in the wild. Can they recognize same and difference? Well, they have to recognize this is the same type of berry that I ate last time that was really good. That is part of the animal's basic abilities that they have to have in order to survive.
Em 2002, mudaram-se para a Universidade de Brandeis e Irene continuou a compilar provas.
How many corners?
A tentar provar que Alex percebia do que estava a falar.
What Alex does that's different from parroting is that he recombines his symbols. For instance, someone brought birthday cake into the lab, and Alex knew the word for bread, and he knew the word yummy. And he tasted the birthday cake, and he said, yummy bread. This is a parrot. How amazing is that?
And it was that moment of realizing that, yes, my hunch as to what he could do was correct. And that moment of knowing something that, nobody else knew. Just for that moment that we had succeeded, we had this piece of information that we could then share with the rest of the world. It was really exciting.
Em 2007, o Alex podia contar até 8.
What color number bigger? Orange. Orange is right. Good boy.
Fazia contas.
What is it? You tell me.
E tinha um vocabulário de mais de 100 palavras.
Water. Oh, yeah, it has water in it. Right. What's it called? Shower. Right.
So we were able to show that on the types of tasks you give a child, okay, not particularly on language, but on cognitive processing, on number tasks, and, shape questions and things like that, that Alex was at the level of about a 5 or 6-year-old child.
Alex e Irene tornaram-se estrelas com acompanhamento internacional. E aos 31 anos, cerca de metade da esperança de vida de um papagaio cinzento africano, ele estava apenas a começar a agarrar todo o seu potencial. Irene começava agora testes mais avançados, conceito de espaço e resposta a ilusões ópticas.
I'm gonna put you in. Okay, you be good. Bye. Bye. Alex and I had a good night routine that we used every night.
I love you. I love you too. Bye.
We walked out the door, fully expecting the next day to be just like any other day. But it wasn't.
I got a call from Irene. As soon as I heard her voice, I knew something had happened. And I said, what happened? And she said, I just found out Alex died. And I just froze.
And that's when the phone calls kept coming in. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?
I was in shock. Alex was just so special.
It was like this emptiness.
Everybody was known to see Alex and her together. Now there's not Alex.
I lost my closest collaborator, my closest colleague, and it was like losing a child, like losing a spouse. I mean, it was just this huge hole because for 30 years, Alex was the center of my life.
Hoje, Irene guarda as memórias de Alex, incluindo as suas cinzas. Mas também olha para o futuro e continua a trabalhar com 2 papagaios mais novos.
How many? 1. Oh, that was a very good one. Here's one corner. Here's one corner. Good birdie. Now, what shape is this? What shape?
E a sua luta pela aceitação e financiamento continua.
Irene's always on the road, trying to raise money.
And it was only at the last 6 months or so of Alex?
Trying to write grants, trying to get donations.
Alex has helped us recognize that animal intelligence is a continuum so that these creatures that look so different from us are doing the same kinds of intelligent behavior that we are. People now should look at the term bird brain as a compliment.
And now for some final thoughts on smart animals. Smart pets are the ones that obey simple commands and, as we've seen, can memorize the names of things. Smart chimpanzees even know how to stack boxes and reach a banana, or combine hand gestures into rudimentary sign language. These animals are cherished by their owners and are often the marvel of scientific conferences. Though impressive for their own species, their intellectual talents are no greater than that of a human toddler. Our brain is, of course, capable of art, poetry, philosophy, mathematics, technology. Meanwhile, only a small genetic difference separates humans from other mammals, especially chimps. What a difference that little bit makes, you might say. But suppose that intelligence difference was as small as the genetic difference itself, and we just tell ourselves it's large. Suppose another life form showed up with the same small genetic advantage on us that we have on chimps. What would we look like to them? The most brilliant among us, say Stephen Hawking, would be presented at their conferences as they proclaim, this one is slightly smarter than the rest. He can do astrophysics calculations in his head, just like our little Timmy over here. Come to think of it, we've never meaningfully communicated with a species on Earth less intelligent than we are. Could it be that our simplest thoughts are too abstract, too complex for them to comprehend? Leaving me to wonder whether this hypothetical smarter life form would be similarly challenged trying to communicate with us, as they wonder whether their simplest thoughts are too abstract, too complex for the human mind to understand. And that is the Cosmic Perspective.